If you're a good athlete, you can probably learn the nuts and bolts in a couple of years to be ring ready. But the hardest part of it, and the bit that's probably worth exploring, and where rugby union really can learn from wrestling, is the salesmanship, the ability to sell something on camera, to embody a character, to try and create something that's marketable, really. My interest got piqued because every so often over the last couple of years, we'd see rugby recruitment sites saying, oh, I don't know if you know this, but the World Wrestling Entertainment are trying to get hold of former rugby athletes or current rugby athletes between the ages of 24 and 28. Do you think you'd be up for it? And we see lots of players sharing that information with each other and having a bit of crack about, oh yeah, let's get the spandex on and everything, and then it disappears. So I went directly to them and they said, yep, absolutely, this is 100% legitimate. Do you want to talk to Triple H about it? He's pretty keen to explore the avenue. And 48 hours later I was on a phone call with them talking about it all, and I realised that there was lots of different avenues, and there's all sorts of stuff about the values of the game and what they're after, but realistically the kind of athlete that they're looking for is exactly in rugby union's wheelhouse, because they're looking for men or women who are of mature enough, but in their mid to late 20s, who have the right physical attributes, know how to graft, can do a bit of teamwork, don't mind touring, and that ticks a lot of boxes with rugby. And if we're being realistic, it's not exactly no offence, we've got European Players of the Year and Lions on the call here, but it's the household name probably isn't in rugby union, probably isn't appealing to little Kevin from Utah. So they've got to build a persona around this and look for something completely different. So if you're fancying something different in rugby union, why not throw your hand in? Because who knows what sort of lifestyle you'll get at the end of it.
Well, I think I can safely say the criteria is cancelled me by age, physical attributes, and graft. Probably at that stage I was done for. So I'd watch from the sidelines. Maybe Foxy's got a better chance.
I could see you a bit of a Paul Bear, to be honest. Yeah.
And one of the big things they wanted to hit was that when the world goes back to normal, whatever that means, is they're keen to have tryouts with athletes and those interested in exploring the avenues who meet all the criteria, or might tick a few of the boxes, but they want to see a bit more from. And they're wanting to hit places like Cape Town, Sydney and London. And obviously those are hotbeds for rugby union. And if you think about somewhere like South Africa, where there's a plethora of rugby talent there, but there's not always the avenues available to them, that you think, why wouldn't someone want to look at that? And what they do at these trials is they'll get them in and do some basic stuff, forward rolls in a ring, bounding over each other in a big circle, getting into their fight stance, going through some pretty basic technique. If you're a good athlete, you can probably learn the nuts and bolts in a couple of years to be ring ready. But the hardest part of it, and the bit that's probably worth exploring, and where rugby union really can learn from wrestling, is the salesmanship, the ability to sell something on camera, to embody a character, to try and create something that's marketable, really. And that's where you have other sports looking at them. Speaking to Triple H, he said that Formula One is a sport that's been interested in what they have to do. And we've seen in the last couple of years on their Netflix show, this Drive to Survive series, I don't know if anyone's seen that, but one of the big aspects of that is building up the rivalries between them, creating a narrative so that it looks like there's animosity between drivers on rivals teams, even drivers on their own team, between management. And whether or not that truly affects the sport, it's something that you can sell. And rugby has these natural rivalries. So it's something that potentially union can learn something from.
But I am not obviously I do all the F1, and I've been part of that Netflix thing, and when you're actually in it and you watch it, it's very, very good, but it's a little manufactured.
Sure.
And really that's my point with WWE, is that I don't know anything about WWE, but I've always thought, rather than sport, like a true competitive sport, it was entertainment. So how does that go from somebody who is and maybe they just take the money and they have a great life and it's all fine. But if you actually are a competitive, top-level sportsman, entertainment hasn't really been in your circle. You have gone out to win every single time. So how do you square that off?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and it's something where we have to almost reverse engineer it. If you look at other competitive sports like the NBA, they sell almost exclusively now sometimes to young people with the personalities that are involved in the sport. The athletes themselves become the commodity in a lot of places. And whereas you compare that with soccer and the sport itself, there's not much patching that needs to go round about it because it's such a big powerhouse. But if rugby's to compete in a market where they want as much attention and they're looking for competing with soccer or they're competing with other sports or on cricket, and they need that little bit of edge globally, there might need to be a little element of salesmanship in it. And speaking to Alex Corbisiero for the piece, who's a lifelong wrestling fan, one of the things that he said is there are already brilliant narratives in rugby union, and you don't need to take away from what goes on the pitch. All you need to do is turn the dial up a little bit. So if you have something like the East Midlands Derby, where we have a very traditional fixture, teams that love knocking into each other, if you just did the marketing around that, you don't need to take away from the competitive nature of it, because obviously we know that wrestling is very different, and whilst you cannot deny the athleticism that's involved, obviously there are storylines, there are writers that are involved, someone sometimes has to play the heel, someone's got to be the hero, and as we know, and I'd be interested to get the guys' views on this, it's a hard sell to say to a rugby player or someone, we're trying to sell this thing, do you fancy playing the bad guy for a little bit? I mean, Eddie Jones might not have a problem with doing it. There are certain other coaches that might not have a problem with doing it. But I don't imagine there are too many players that are willing to put their hand up and say, yeah, I'm happy to play the heel for a couple of months.
The thing that doesn't bode well is that you go on a field and you got 15 other people against you trying to take your head off if you are the heel. There's no writers telling them to take it easy on you. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I was gonna say, like, right, next press conference I'm in, I'm gonna do the whole The Rock. If you smell what The Rock's cooking, but it's difficult because you don't almost want to set yourself up for a fall, and you just do what you have to do, and almost they will say, like, you do your talking on the field. That's probably how I look at it, really.
Yeah, I was gonna say it is a difficult one, to go into a sort of fight, battle, whatever it is, sort of knowing that you're trying to play the villain and you might have to lose, or you might have to do this in a sense, or that'd be quite hard for us as competitive athletes. Although I would say that, growing up as a kid, obviously thought it was amazing. It was, so violent. And as you get older, you go, okay, maybe it's not quite what it seems. It is a bit more acting. I actually met John Layfield, JBL, the legend that he is. A few drinks. We were in on this boat in Bermuda on a Saris trip, and just said, "Oh,
of course it was a Saris trip."
Well, it was a pre-season trip. It'd been a tough one, and we were back end of the weekend having some fun. We were on this boat, and it was a pirate ship. And I said to JBL, I said, "What's your go-to move, like signature move?" And it was the clothesline from hell. I'm sure you know, Alan. And I said, "Oh, do it to me." And it's all acting, right? I thought, let's see what happens. So I stood on the edge of this plank, and he came in and he hit me so hard. He's about 6'4", 6'5". He's a big man, and he cleaned me out into the water. And ever since, I didn't really fancy wrestling after that. To be honest, it flipping hurt. So not for me. But I think the sort of, not hamming it up, but making the rivalry can be there. It's just that I think rugby players perhaps aren't the best when you get into the heat of the battle. Being told what to do would be quite hard for us. We just want to go hell for leather and give everything. So,
Jonathan, Alex, who do you think that you've either played against, played with over the years that would have been, or maybe still, the perfect WWE candidate?
I thought RG Snyman would be pretty good, with the sort of big beard, South African guy, massive, quite likes playing the villain a bit as well. Thought he'd be quite a good one. I thought you'd have to get like a brothers tag team one, so the Vunipolas, although they both probably couldn't be bothered, they would be quite funny to see. Or maybe Will Skelton coming in as well. So they were sort of my picks for some wrestlers.
You've been watching the House of Rugby Season 3 on Joe.